A swarm of bats flies through the dark landscape of Wallachia. The year is 1455. A woman enters a huge castle surrounded by a field of corpses. She's carrying a knife. She finds a man inside and introduces herself as Lisa, an aspiring doctor from Lupu. The man hovers behind her. His name is Vlad Dracula Tepes, and he doesn't welcome visitors. Lisa wants knowledge, but Dracula is skeptical. She claims that she isn't a witch and only wants to heal people. Dracula can't believe someone is asking him for help. She asks him if he travels and sees the world outside. He says the castle can travel, but later reveals that he does not. He leads her to his study containing rows upon rows of books and science equipment. Lisa thinks everyone's lives can improve with all the knowledge in this room. She invites him to share it all with them while she himself works with Dracula. He accepts. Targovist, Wallachia 1475. The people gather as Lisa burns at the stake. Clergymen surround her, claiming that her collection of tools and machines comes from the devil. The Archbishop wants Wallachia's study of science to be kept simple. In her last breath, Lisa cries out at the sky for him not to seek revenge. The priests think it's intended for the devil, and perhaps the witch is worthy of praying for. Dracula walks silently across a dark village. He stops to find an old home burned and destroyed. An old woman approaches him and asks if he's Mr. Tepes. She tells him the bishop took Lisa, intending to burn her at the stake. Lisa should be dead by now. The old woman offers him flowers. All these years, Dracula traveled at the behest of his wife so that he could live as a man. Enraged, he warns the old woman to leave and not look back. He considers it his final act of mercy. A pillar of flame engulfs him, and he disappears. Back at the cathedral, the final remains of Lisa crumble into ash, and the stake explodes into fire and rubble. Dracula's face appears in the flames and asks them what they had done. The bishop scorns him, telling him she's a witch and that he's not real. Dracula screams and swears to destroy everything in Wallachia in 1 year for the death of his wife. As he leaves, fire rains from the sky. Dracula goes back to his castle to plan his destruction. A man called Alucard appears to stop him. Unleashing the army of the night in Wallachia will leave severe consequences for humanity, but Dracula lashes out at him. A year later in Targovist, the Archbishop addresses his people about the devil's lies and threats. Suddenly, everything goes dark, and blood rains from the sky, causing everyone to panic. Then comes a torrent of deformed flesh, followed by bursting pillars of fire. Dracula's face appears in the sky, heralding Wallachia's doom. Demonic creatures swarm the town from all over, murdering everyone in sight. Fire spew from their throats, wreaking havoc on every person and building in sight. Dracula commands his army to go to every other town in Wallachia and kill them all for the hatred he will endure forever. Inside a tavern, two drunk patrons discuss an incident linked to a neighbor's affection for goats. Another man frantically comes in and reports the arrival of the demon horde. Nearby, Grezit has been attacked, and it could come for their town next. The men at the tavern gossip about the Belmont family, cursing them for waging wars against each other that affect the common folk. Another man approaches the bar and asks for more ale. The others notice the family crest in his shirt. It's a Belmont crest. The man denies it, but the drunkards aren't convinced. The men tell him that Belmonts practice black magic, and he retorts that they fight it, from what he's told. Still, the men insist that the Belmonts could be the ones to blame for Dracula's attacks on their towns, as black magic is now rampant in Wallachia. The man introduces himself as Trevor Belmont and warns them that he's armed. This doesn't stop them, as the drunkards and a bartender all gang up on Trevor. He leaves the tavern drunk, bloody, and cursing. Trevor wakes up the following day and finds himself near Grezit. The demons have been ravaging the town. Its gates are barred, and the city is filled with the dead. Trevor finds a sewer entrance and braces himself before venturing in. He sneaks past the sleeping guards to find a broken city. The poor and homeless litter the streets, and there are piles of dead people everywhere. In the city center, the people get by with trading what little they have. A meat vendor tells him that the speakers are in the city. After they're done, the demons should leave them alone. Trevor goes around town to gather more information. Another man tells him of a sleeping hero who will save them after he wakes from under the catacombs. He tells him not to let the bishop hear of it, of course. Some other man elsewhere tells him the bishop will take care of everyone in Grezit. As he wanders, he stumbles upon a speaker being threatened by a group of priests. Trevor whips one of the priests, severing a finger. He warns them to run away, but one of the priests attacks him with a knife, and Trevor lashes him and takes out an eyeball. He tells both priests to leave them. The elder speaker thanks Trevor and invites him to their lodging, where he meets others of his order. The speakers tell him that violence is unnecessary. Trevor has dealt with speakers before and knows quite a lot about them. The speakers are an order of nomadic scholars of history, but it seems odd that they've been here for a while. The church diverts the blame to them. The speakers know that the church brought Dracula's ire on themselves by executing Dracula's wife. They decided to stay in Grezit to help the people. The elder tells him of the legend of the sleeping soldier. Trevor thinks it's too convenient and magical. The speakers say they can hear stories from the future. The one assigned to look for the soldier has vanished into the catacombs. The elder asks Trevor what he plans to do, and all he wants is to get drunk and eat. Trevor's family could have defeated Dracula, but the church didn't want them to do so. He wants the church to suffer for their choice. The elder asks him about the ordinary people of Wallachia, and Trevor tells them they've always stood aside while evil men took power. Before Trevor leaves, he asks the speakers to leave town, but it is revealed that the missing speaker is the elder's grandchild. They stay for the people, for hope. Trevor tells them he'll find his grandchild's body if they agree to leave. He fears that the people are about to incite a riot against them. The elder agrees but tells him it's not death that they fear but living without doing their best. Trevor enters the catacombs. He passes through a secret entrance hidden behind a mural of knights and gargoyles. He finds a torch with fresh oil and delves further. As he moves forward, the ground crumbles under his weight, and he falls into the deeper floors. The chamber lights up with a row of electric lights, revealing lifelike statues that look too realistic. A huge monster appears and attacks him straight away, and he recognizes it as a stone-eyed cyclops from their family bestiary. Trevor runs behind the pillars to evade the cyclops' gaze. He throws his short sword at it, but it's not enough. He pulls it back with his whip and tosses the sword upwards. Trevor spins in the air and catches his sword with a twisting kick, hurling it straight to the monster's eye. The cyclops falls, and the statues return to normal. One of them is the missing speaker. Trevor asks her to return so that the speakers can leave town, but she wants to continue finding the sleeping warrior. He tells her that there is no warrior down here, and that his grandfather thinks she's dead, and she might as well relieve the elder's worries. She introduces herself as Sypha. They return to the speaker's lodging. Sypha apologizes to the elder for not finding the sleeper, and Trevor tells her there is no hero down there, only traps for gullible people. When challenged, he tells them that what they found down there was exactly like how Belmont's ancestors described Dracula's castle. Trevor leaves to have a drink. Outside, a group of priests corners him. The Bishop of Grezit wants him, and Trevor tells them he's excommunicated. But that's not enough to defy an official summons. The bishop meets him. The man was originally from Targovist and is here to save Grezit. He was the one who arranged for the burning of Dracula's wife. Trevor asks if he's there for discipline, but the bishop offers him a gift instead. He's allowed to leave town until sundown despite his crimes. Trevor insists his family has no crimes and that they were ostracized unjustly. Angered, the bishop tells them the town is under his control now, and the word of God shall prevail. He'll follow or die. As Trevor leaves, the bishop muses that with all the major cities gone, he is practically in charge of the church. Trevor goes back to the speakers to tell them the news. The bishop wants them dead for the salvation of Grezit. Even if they survive, the cycle will continue. The elder doesn't want to lead the people in their time of need. They are not to be dissuaded by a lie from the church, and the same lie that pushed the Belmonts away. Trevor insists he isn't running away, but the elder tells him he's defeated, unlike them who still want to fight for the soul of the people. Sypha tells him to leave if he wants, but Trevor turns it around and threatens them to go instead. As sundown approaches, the mob advances toward the speakers. Trevor meets them alone while the speakers are hiding under the catacombs. Trevor tells them the speakers are gone and the city is lost. The priests insult him, but Trevor insists that the Belmonts will fight for this city. The priests arm themselves with blades, but Trevor fights them with traps and distracts the angry mob. He kills the priests who corner him, but the mob is closing in. Above them, Dracula's forces are about to attack. The angry mob mobilizes around Grezit. The bishop sees the cathedral doors open and asks if the speakers are dead. A group of demons enters and tells him his time is up. The bishop tells them this is the house of God, but the demons say it is an empty box. His God has abandoned him for his lies, and he has brought the demons down upon them. The demon thanks the bishop for bringing them there before devouring him whole. Back in the city, the mob continues to chase Trevor. As they surround him, a fire ring forms around Trevor to defend him. Sypha appears from the rooftops, casting her spells. The men accuse her of witchcraft. She tells them she's a speaker and a scholar of magic as she makes a safe path for Trevor. He then realizes why she was the one sent to the catacombs, and she tells him she's here to fight. Trevor points at the priest inciting the mob and invites him to a duel. Trevor reveals the lies of the church. He speaks to the mob and tells them the church is responsible for bringing down the Horde. The mob kills the priest in anger. Behind them, a fire breaks out. The demons have come. Trevor commands the ones wielding spears to the front lines. He tells the priests to get water for aspersion and the others to salt their weapons. He asks Sypha to lure the demons towards them in any way possible. The men band together under the command of Trevor. As the demons approach, Sypha creates a wall of ice to lead them forward. He throws holy water at the demons, and the vanguard pierces those who try to step closer. Sypha uses her ice magic, and Trevor uses his consecrated whip to fight them. A larger demon jumps from the crowd and hunts Trevor and Sypha. Sypha pierces it with ice while Trevor whips its face to death. The ground crumbles beneath them, but they manage to break their fall. They're back in the catacombs again, much deeper than before. A clockwork of machinery and traps lead them to a darker path, and they traverse and evade its perils with their magic and wits. Further on, they stumble upon an ornate sarcophagus. It opens to a shirtless man with blonde hair. The man asks him why they are here, and Sypha recognizes her as the sleeping warrior, the man who will save them against Dracula. Belmont recognizes him as a vampire. He could be Dracula, and this place could be his wandering castle. The vampire recognizes his family name. They are sworn enemies. They fight each other, Belmont with his whip and the vampire with his long sword. Sypha asks them to stop, but they're both determined. Belmont lashes at the vampire, but his whip gets disarmed. They fight with swords, but the vampire is too fast and too strong. The vampire subdues him, but Trevor has a blade in the other's body. Trevor can still die, but he doesn't mind as long as he kills the vampire. Sypha steps in and threatens the vampire with fire magic. The vampire learns she's a speaker and backs off. His name is Adrian Tepes, also known as Alucard to the Wallachians. He's the son of Vlad Dracula Tepes. He's been asleep for a year after his father attacked him, as he wanted to stop Dracula from unleashing the demons. The sleeping soldier is said to be found by a scholar and a hunter. That's why the elder asked for Trevor to stay. Alucard asks them both to help him defeat Dracula and save Wallachia for his mother's will.